There's a word that's synonymous with humanity's need to game, and it has been for thousands of years. But for us modern gamers, that word conjures up less of these and more of this. And of course, that word is dice. It's fair to say that DICE, or Digital Illusions Creative Entertainment, are best known as the creators of the explosive juggernaut of a franchise that is Battlefield. But it took the studio an entire decade before the word Battlefield ever graced one of their games. And back before they were even called DICE, they were just 4 university students who set up a demo group known as the Silence back in 1988. Demo groups basically make little pieces of digital art like this, if you're wondering. Then in 1992, they decided to make actual games and rebranded themselves as Digital Illusions, adding on the creative entertainment a bit later. From their dorm rooms, they began to make their mark on the world as pinball wizards, churning out titles like Pinball Dreams, Pinball Fantasies, and Pinball Illusions for the Amiga. They did take a brief break from pinball to create Amiganoid, a play on the Arkanoid series, but with one major difference: it had 2 paddles instead of 1, which is sort of like pinball, I guess. But it wasn't all balls and paddles, and we saw their first take on military themes with 94's Benefactor, a Lemmings-esque game where you played as Ben E. Factor, a retired military man who had to rescue merry men kidnapped from their home planet. Killer premise. While these games didn't exactly set the world on fire, they were successful enough to allow the studio to grow and move from the dorm rooms into the office. And it's here where they shifted gears from pinball to racing. They made racing game after racing game for almost an entire decade, and their races covered almost every aspect of the genre. From the futuristic dystopian streets of Motorhead, the constant turning left of NASCAR Heat, the excellent Scandinavian flicks of Rally Sport Challenge, the thrills of tiny emergency vehicles in Matchbox Emergency Patrol, the thunder of 8 cylinders in V8 Challenge, and the CBD-based insanity of Midtown Madness 3, to name just a few. During those Fast and Furious years, they briefly dabbled with the snore-inducing beast Edutainment, creating 2 entries into the Jumpstart series with 2001's Wildlife Safari Field Trip and Dino Adventure Field Trip. They also took time out to tackle a few big licensed games, making the Shrek tie-in for Xbox and GameCube, and Diva Stars Mall Mania for Game Boy Color, a game which one reviewer said was so lazily designed as to be offensive and arguably not even a game. Clearly they wanted a chance to stretch their creative wings and develop their own memorable characters, and who could be more memorable than Prism? 2002's Prism Chapter 1 The Dark Unicorn for PlayStation 2 was an action platformer, all about a young unicorn who just wanted to fly but was weighed down by her troll rider Karok. We've all been there, Prism.
I'm afraid the lumbering tramp of a troll's stride is no match for a unicorn's swift gait. Speed is needed. Now you must ride or be left behind.
There was no Chapter 2. But that very same year, DICE had their breakthrough moment. Battlefield 1942 blitzkrieged its way into the hearts and minds of gamers, standing out from other World War II shooters of the day with its mix of large online battles, team-based gameplay, and of course the vehicular mayhem the series has become so well known for. From that point on, DICE doubled down on their bombastic baby, following it up with several expansions and full-blown sequels that crept forward in time to Vietnam, modern day, and well into the future. Meanwhile, such success hadn't gone unnoticed, and in 2004 EA bought out the majority of shares in the studio, and by the end of 2006 had completed the acquisition. DICE was no more. It was now EA Digital Illusions CE, or DICE for short. Now under the stewardship of a massive publisher, DICE set about creating 2 new franchises. Well, 1.5. First out of the blocks was a spin-off for the studio's big hit Battlefield with the 2008 console exclusive Bad Company. Later that same year, making the most of the world's blossoming obsession with parkour, came the cult classic Mirror's Edge. Clean, crisp, fast, and athletic, Mirror's Edge was unlike anything else out there, and to this day very little has come close to replicating its charms. But back to Bad Company. This marked an important milestone for the studio. Not only was the humour-filled, single-player focused game a departure from the usual Battlefield formula, it also marked the debut of the studio's very own game engine, Frostbite. Previously to Frostbite, DICE either created their own unique engines for each game, or they relied on pre-existing engines, but now they had their own tech. Bad Company showed off the engine's impressive audio capabilities that brought the thwack of gunshots and the distant echoes of war scarily close to reality. But perhaps most importantly, it imbued Bad Company with a level of detailed destruction rarely seen in games. This neat little feature was dubbed Destruction 1.0.
You just said we can blow up anything?
Pretty much.
Anything.
Pretty much anything.
Now that is great news. Oh, hey, sorry, check this out. Number one. And what comes after one? Two comes after one.
A story of one man's journey.
Not content with just 1.0, oh no, Frostbite 1.5 brought with it Destruction 2.0. This updated Destruction wasn't content with the simple wall smashery of the original, it could now literally bring the house down. This tech became the beating heart of both Battlefield 1943 and the second Bad Company, a game which many still consider as the high point for the series. It was also the engine used in the multiplayer part of the Medal of Honor reboot, but it featured less destruction there, so no one really cared. As Frostbite evolved into 2.0, it mostly brought with it extra ease of use so other studios could harness its powers as we saw the first wave of Frostbite-powered games. And of course, it upped the destruction stakes once more in Battlefield 3. Then, as the latest generation of hardware brought with it an insatiable demand for bigger and prettier games, there was a clear need for more powerful and efficient tools for developers to bring their visions to life. And so, with Battlefield 4, Frostbite 3 arrived with a bang. And now it's the engine powering many of EA's biggest franchises and upcoming games, from epic RPGs, colourful shooters, extreme races, and even golf. DICE have cemented themselves as not only great game makers, but also as the technical backbone to one of the world's biggest publishers. And now, tasked with guiding a resurgent Star Wars franchise to an all-new Battlefront, the studio could be on the verge of their greatest achievement to date. It's fair to say the team at DICE are on a bit of a roll.